I've got a lot of women who are directors, can't figure out why they're not getting to that next level. And what I find is we are comfortable in the doing. We're comfortable with always looking busy and always doing the things and always supporting our team. But then we miss that great opportunity to get out and have important conversations and really advocate for ourselves. The same applies with job interviews. You need to know your top accomplishments, you need to know your top skills, and you need to be able to clearly articulate those.
Hello, and welcome to the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm Brittany Cates, your host and companion on this incredible journey of career transformation. Get ready for inspiring stories, valuable insights, and a roadmap to shift your mindset towards a more fulfilling professional life. In each episode, we explore the remarkable journeys of individuals who made the leap from one career to another. As we navigate through these stories together, you'll find motivation, strategies, and the confidence to pursue your dreams. Whether you're feeling stuck, contemplating a change, or just seeking a dose of inspiration, this podcast is your weekly companion. Tune in every Thursday as we uncover the secrets to shifting your day job. I'm Brittany Cates, and I'm here to guide you on your path to a more fulfilling career. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shift Your Day Job podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Cates, and I'm grateful that you're here today. Today I'm talking with Tabatha Jones. She is a career coach, and she's here to talk about advocating for yourself in the workplace, making sure that you ask for the things that you need, and giving us some tips and tricks on how to interview better and how to present your transferable skills in a way that's really going to communicate the value that you'll add to a new job in a new role. So I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did recording it. Here is Tabatha Jones. Tabitha, thank you for being on my podcast today. I'm excited to talk about your experience being a career coach. So as we get started, can you give listeners a bit of a background of your career journey and how you became a career coach and what that looked like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to be here and to meet you. So thank you. A little about my journey into coaching is a little different from most other coaches. I spent actually more than 30 years in the corporate world. 20 years of that, I was climbing the leadership ladder. And really looking back on my history, feel like it positioned me well for my future which led me to coaching. So let's start with my first step into leadership was a project management role. And I was responsible for really large technical projects within the telecom industry. And I was doing that role, taking on more and more responsibility. So after a period of time, I had the title of project manager. I was leading 4 individual teams that were responsible for very different responsibilities, and kept hoping, wishing, and dreaming that my leader would promote me eventually. Maybe when I get my degree, maybe when I finish this project. The secret is it never happened. What happened instead is we had a reorganization, and our department went from a department that just included the state of California to a department that included the entire West Division of the telecom company, which meant we would be bringing in 7 different states under one leadership group. And actually, I need to back up a little. That happened, but not quite yet. We had a reorg before that. Oh my gosh. We had a reorg before that. And when I saw the positions posted and was told I had to reapply for my job, I realized I was already doing more than the job ahead of me. I was like, what is happening? I applied and interviewed, was offered the position. When I was offered that position, it came with a 4% pay increase. And that was the day that I said, I don't think so. I literally have been doing this job with a project manager title for 10 years. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Much to the shock of the director that was doing the hiring. And I walked out, ended up in the CFO's office. And she asked me, what's it going to take to turn this around? And I said, first of all, I would like a senior manager title. And second of all, I would like 15%. And she said, I assume you mean on top of what we've already offered you? And I said, yes, ma'am. It's kind of the day that I realized I was like, first off, I haven't been advocating for myself. I haven't been negotiating. I haven't been doing all the things I should be doing. So fast forward 10 months, that's when the division reorg happened and positions posted again. They were hiring from the director level first, all the way through. And so I applied for a director level role. I didn't get an interview initially, reached out to the hiring manager and just had that conversation of, hey, can you tell me a little bit about what's going on? And she said, thanks for calling and checking in. Yes, we're filling the director roles first. Rest assured, we have a senior manager role for you somewhere on our team. So don't worry, you're definitely going to land. And we've heard great things about you. And so this was my opportunity to once again start advocating for myself. And I thanked her and said, I'm going to be very candid with you. I am not applying for a senior manager role on your team. I'm either going to move my career up, I'm going to move my career over, or I'm going to move my career out to a different company completely. It's time. I've been in my role for 10 years. I shared a lot of my great accomplishments. Everything I'd done in those 10 months was flown to Denver 2 days later, interviewing in front of a panel of 7 vice presidents, where I told my story and was offered the job very shortly thereafter. From there, I was promoted to senior director for taking on more responsibility. And to keep this a little bit more short, because I feel like I'm talking a ton, but want to give all the background. In 2019, there was yet another reorg. For those who come from the telecom and tech world, they know they happen all the time. So this reorg, we were going to become a national team. And the expectation was that the senior managers would just move over, taking on different and new responsibilities for the entire nation. And that was that. And I was like, no, it's not. So I reached out to the head of the department. So 2 levels ahead of me, a little bit of an interesting character that I hadn't really interacted with before. So he probably thought I was a bit interesting as well when I said, I really would expect you to come to me with an offer of a salary and the correct title, because based on what I'm seeing, other people in my same organization with similar responsibilities had executive director and vice president titles. So that led to a promotion to executive director, an additional pay increase. And it not only helped me in advocating for myself, but it brought the other senior directors along. So we were all promoted and all given pay increases that were deserved, but had not initially been intended. So that's the long way of saying how I went through the corporate world. And then say probably 2017-ish, I had started coaching on the side just for fun. It was my favorite part of my job. I loved it. I loved helping people learn and grow their careers. And there was just this pull. And that last reorg was like my time when I sat there and I said, you know what? You're turning 50. When are you going to do it? Or are you just going to live with regret? So that is when I took the leap full time into coaching. So lots of background and hopefully clear, a little bit all over there.
Yeah, that's amazing. One question that comes to my mind about that is the first time around, what made you decide to speak up? What happened mindset wise that got you to finally say, I'm going to do something different?
Yeah. So in my very first step after the 10 years of project management, or when I stepped out into coaching?
First time after the 10 years and the reorg, and then you're like, this isn't acceptable. What was it about that
Yeah.
moment that was like a turning point for you?
It's where I realized that people will take as much as you'll give. And if you cannot advocate for yourself and speak up, you're not going to get ahead. I share this with clients often. Sometimes you're the shining star that's making your leader look really great. And your leader, no matter how much they love you and how much they want to support you, they don't want to lose you, because all of a sudden they're going to have to hire 2 or 3 people to do the work you've been doing. And what are they going to do? So I learned that it's really important to speak up. And I just hit that point where I have literally done everything above and beyond. I'm not going to take this anymore. I am moving my career forward.
Yeah. And as part of that, like there's risk involved. You told them, excuse me, you told them, well, you either give me this pay bump or I'm out. So
Yeah.
how were you able to like be okay with the possibility of it not working out?
So interesting and good question, because I had my kids, family, house, all those things going on. It's not like you could just walk away from a paycheck, right?
Right.
But I hit a point where I knew how much I had done and I knew that my skills were in demand. And even if I was nervous about leaving the company, I knew that I could find something within the company fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So I wasn't very concerned about that. What I was more concerned with was no longer being taken advantage of and actually setting a great example. So I had a lot of frontline employees on my team, and I would never want them to feel like they can work themselves to death, and I would never help them promote themselves or never advocate for them to do better.
Yeah.
But also knowing I wouldn't always be in their lives, I wanted to teach them how to do the same thing. Yeah, it was just one of those heck no moments.
Yeah. I love that. I think all of those stages that you described going through are really amazing examples of advocating for yourself, speaking up. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. We're going to do something different. And I love that piece about you wanting to be an example for those that you worked with, because
Yeah.
really what it comes down to is if you're a good manager, you love your people typically, right? And you want what's best for them, and it's not about what corporate says. It's no, I'm going to advocate for them, or I'm going to advocate for myself as an example for them because I care. And these people aren't robots. Like they're people that deserve to be treated well. And so I love that example. So when you started career coaching in 2017, what was it that got you started doing that?
I'd say at the time it was just finding more ways to help other people, how to support people outside of the company, right? Do my strategies and techniques, do they work outside of the company? And so it gave me that opportunity to test. And it also let me see, who do I really love working with the most? I worked with people who were graduating from college, whose moms would hire me. I worked with women in different types of industries across government and other places. And oh my gosh, people returning to work from entrepreneurship. It gave me a really great opportunity to dabble and see where that sweet spot was and where I was happiest. So that's really what I did and enjoyed it. And I'll tell you, I was sitting in a seminar in 2018, and it was this great seminar about leadership, leading with power and authenticity. It was this great seminar. And I kept hearing this little voice, like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you leading this? Why aren't you the one in the front of the room? And I had the other little voice saying, because you're not ready. You don't have enough credentials. You don't have enough letters after your last name, blah, blah, blah. And when I left there, I remember I just left with, I took away a lot of good things from the seminar, but I just left with that. What's holding me back? What is it?
Right.
So it did take me a couple years to get the courage to make the change, but definitely was a bit of a journey.
Yeah. I like that reminder because a recent guest said to me, if something like resonates with you like that, and it feels scary, but you know you could do it, then you should do it. But if it's something that you can't even imagine yourself doing, then don't do that. And so, anyway, I think that's a really great example of if there's that little voice or that itch to, I think I could do that too, then follow that, follow where that goes. And I think it also aligns with this idea of start saying yes to things that are going to move you in the new direction that you're wanting to go, even if they sound scary or out of the norm, right? Like you you knew you wanted more. Maybe at that time you didn't know exactly what that looked like, but you knew you wanted more.
Right.
And by doing those things that you're like, but I don't really have this or that. You're by doing them anyway, you're getting yourself closer to that change and towards becoming the person that you are desiring to grow into. So love that.
Exactly. So interesting. I had two different conversations or two different situations this week that tie to that, which is if it feels scary, it might be the right thing. One was a prospective client who was thinking about looking for a new job. She'd been laid off, but I'd given her some homework because she wasn't sure really what she wants to do. And one thing when I work with people is I want them to have a good idea of the direction they're heading. And she just had so many passions, passionate people, multi-talented people. We have a really hard time narrowing it down. So when she came back to me and we had our follow-up conversation, we were really talking and she said, I love cooking. I really want to cook. And we went through this whole story and her husband supports it and her kids have supported it. I was like, sounds like everybody's ready for you to do it except for you. What's stopping you? Go have one conversation, take one small action forward and see what difference that makes. Similar conversation. I spoke at an event earlier this week and they were talking about different career goals and that. And this one lady, she wants a promotion and she doesn't really know what she wants to do specifically, but the direction she's headed is up. And I said, let's take one step. Let's sit down and write down your why. What is the reason you want that? And who do you need to go have a conversation with and bring that into the world? Like it's so simple. Like you said, one step.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was working with my career coach, that was often the thing that we would come back to is, okay, what's the next one step for you to move forward? You don't have to look at the big picture right now. You just need to take the next piece of aligned action to move you closer to your goal. And I love that you mentioned the why piece of it too. Like, why do you want to do this? And is that enough of a driver for you to keep going when the going gets tough? Because it's going to come up. Your resistance is going to come up, and you have to constantly go back to that why to remind yourself why you're doing some hard things.
Absolutely. And it's what keeps you from hiding back in your comfort zone. I say that as an entrepreneur, I've definitely had some hard days. I love coaching. Running a business is not easy. So there's those days where I'm like, maybe I should go back to the comfort of corporate, but it's really perceived comfort at the end of the day, right? It's not comfort. It's not really what I want to do. It's perceived comfort for me. So
Yeah.
that's the thing too, is really think about, is that the right answer or is that really where you feel the most comfortable? And is it really comfortable or is it a perceived comfort or security?
Yeah. I like that phrase, perceived comfort. I was a teacher and I stayed teaching longer than I probably should have because I, in the past, I've said because it was comfortable, but I realized it was more because it was familiar. And so that's the same as that perceived comfort, right? I know this, I know what to expect. There's less risk there, and our brains don't like risk. It makes sense. Like it makes sense that oftentimes you do stay somewhere longer than maybe you would prefer. But we all move at our own pace and it's okay. But often we all get to a point where it's okay, do or die. Either this is it
Yeah,
or I know I'm ready for more and I'm willing to take the risk for it.
exactly. There's people that need different skills and different things in the world, and we all possess one of those things. It's just a matter of how do you bring it forward and when is the timing right? There's no right or wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we go back a little bit to this idea of advocating for yourself and speaking up? Can you talk a little bit more about why that's important and how to start implementing that skill for people?
Absolutely. So I say this with love for my introverted friends because it's not always easy if you're an introvert. I'm a pretty outgoing extrovert, so it's a little easier for me. But the truth is, first of all, you need to know what your unique value is. So what are the skills? What are your accomplishments? What do you really bring to whatever it is you want? So I'll lean into the corporate space, right? So if you want a promotion and your goal is to climb to the vice president level, you need to be really clear on your top accomplishments. And you need to be able to assign metrics to that, whether it's a percentage, a dollar, a number, hours, whatever it is, right? Be able to really know those top accomplishments. And I say take an inventory of your skill, soft skills, whatever you're an expert at, get it on paper. Because then you can start really formulating how conversations need to go. And so some of those conversations we avoid because they're not always comfortable, but getting out and having conversations with leaders who hire for the jobs that you want, people in other departments that you don't normally work with, it's really important. When you're employed, it's easy to take it for granted that you have a whole company at your fingertips. Yes, people are busy, but people really want to help other people and are generally really interested in learning about you. I'd say that in that space, informational interviews are very helpful. Definitely not hiding and doing all the work all the time. I've got a lot of women who are directors, can't figure out why they're not getting to that next level. And what I find is we are comfortable in the doing. We're comfortable with always looking busy and always doing the things and always supporting our team. But then we miss that great opportunity to get out and have important conversations and really advocate for ourselves. The same applies with job interviews. You need to know your top accomplishments, you need to know your top skills, and you need to be able to clearly articulate those.
Yeah.
So when I have clients who are on a job search, I send them on a visibility quest, I call it. And there's a requirement. I need you to get this really clear list of your fan club members, people you've worked with in the past, people at your church, whomever, and schedule time to talk to them, whether you go have coffee, whether you have a Zoom, a phone call, whatever. And business owners, it's the same, right? We need to be visible. We can't be hiding in the Canva all day long and making creative, crafty things. We've got to get out and get in front of people. And the one thing that's in common with job seekers, career people who are looking for career advancement and entrepreneurs is you need to not only know those accomplishments and your areas of expertise and skill, but you also need to be able to really succinctly articulate it. So that's where the elevator pitch comes in. Being able to get in and just be very clear about who you are, what you do, what you're an expert at, maybe weave in an accomplishment, maybe weave in a goal, but then ask the person you're speaking to for whatever it is you need. And a lot of times we get in a conversation with someone and we feel like we're being clear, but we're not. I had an entrepreneur come to me and she was working on growing her business. And I said, tell me what you do. What do you tell people? You run into a stranger in public. What do you say? And she used all kinds of words like modalities. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I'm pretty smart. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Oh, and then she started going in again. I said, okay, but I don't know what that means. Your elevator pitch has to be clear and easy for the person you're speaking to understand it.
Yeah.
That's my biggest piece of advice on advocating.
Yeah. My one thought on that is getting rid of the lingo and how can you explain it in layman's terms? Anybody could understand what you offer is really important. And how do people start practicing that elevator pitch and getting clearer and clearer?
You can just write it out. I have a template. We can pop into the show notes after this episode if you'd like, but definitely just laying it out. And it's very simply broken out who you are and what you do. What are your areas of expertise, top accomplishment, and what do you want from the conversation? I recommend that you practice it because you want it to sound very confident. And you may have to tailor it sometimes, depending on who you're talking to. You can also switch that elevator pitch into a tell me about yourself in a job interview. Everybody's least favorite question next to conflict, right? So
Yes.
it's a really simple way, but the more you practice it, the more confident you get with it. You can use your voice memos on your phone to record it and play it back so you can hear how does this sound?
Yeah.
Have someone review it and listen to it for you and say, does this make sense? But the confidence is really critical.
Yeah. I love those ideas of how you can practice it. My question is the piece about ask for what you want. What does that mean?
So when you're networking, being really clear and intentional about what you need or want from that person. What I may want from one person could be very different from another. And an example would be I need an introduction. I'm trying to get an introduction at a large company out here, someone who runs the ERGs, the employee resource groups. So I will introduce myself to someone, tell them who I am, what I do, say, hey, I'm really looking for an introduction to someone who runs your ERGs. Do you have a name that you can share with me? It may be I'm looking for a position as a project manager. Do you know anyone in the area who is hiring for a project manager role or who may be connected to one of these companies that I could speak with and learn a bit more about what's happening in the organization. It could be, I just want to let you know I applied for a job at your company and I'm really excited. Would you be willing to move my resume forward to the hiring manager? So whatever it is you need from that person, sometimes it's just a follow-up conversation. And we don't always need to go into a conversation expecting an outcome. But if you're on a job search or you're really wanting to get the most out of the conversation, you want to be intentional. Sometimes even with a informational interview, what you may be looking for is just a sponsor or a mentor, somebody you can just bounce ideas off occasionally. Hey, when I get stuck, would it be okay for me to circle back with you? Or is it okay if we connect each month and just share a status on how things are going and maybe share some feedback?
Yeah.
Asking lets people know how they can help you.
Yes. I love it. And people typically want to help you. You mentioned that earlier, right? Like we want to help each other. So I know it can seem scary to ask, can you help? But people generally, genuinely want to help. And yeah, I love all of those examples because it makes me think of all these different scenarios that I've been in, right? Where, yeah, I needed something different from this person than I did from this person. And the only way that they will know is if you ask, similar to advocating for yourself and speaking up for yourself, like we mentioned earlier. So I love all of these great tips. Thank you for sharing that.
No, you're welcome. I'm glad that you caught on to the people want to help you. They do. People genuinely want to help you. As women, we have such a hard time asking for help. It's just, I will literally break my wrist off trying to open a pickle jar. I joke about it all the time, like trying to open it myself before I have to go ask my husband to do it. You
Yeah.
know what? It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. And your wrist will thank you, but also your career or your business will thank you when you ask for the right help.
Yeah. And because networking is about building relationships, when there is a back and forth of communication and you're building that relationship, you never know what's going to come out of it. So
Absolutely.
the podcast that came out today, my friend Jules was talking about her experience with that. And how she got the job at our office was she networked slash connected with another guy on our team. And they just kept talking to each other every month. Like she'd reach out and ask him a question. He'd reach out to her, see how she was doing. He offered to help her with her resume. And so there's just this like constant back and forth that eventually led to her landing a job at the same company that he works at. And so that's just one example of you never know how it can evolve. So
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And that's the thing, the relationship piece is so important. So it's not go ask somebody for something. If you don't get it right away, you just stop talking to that person. You may need to build a little bit more trust, right? That's part of building a relationship. And I actually listened to that episode this morning while I was getting ready, and I was smiling because I tell people all the time landing a new job in this market right now, 100% about networking. The people who are networking and doing their networking homework that are working with me, but others in general, they are landing jobs about 6 months sooner than people who are not.
yeah, that's awesome
Yeah.
to know that statistic.
That's me measuring just from what I'm seeing and what I've been tracking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's definitely much
That's awesome.
faster.
Yeah. Very cool. Because, yeah, I know it hasn't been easy out there.
It's not.
So, when clients come to you or potential clients come to you, what are some common misconceptions that they might have, like limiting beliefs that you might want to talk about and debunk a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So my favorite is I'm not getting promoted because I don't have a degree. That's my all-time favorite. We forget that a degree is a piece of paper and experience is just as valuable, if not more so. Now, I'll say if you're a doctor, a lawyer, or something like that, it's different, right? But in the corporate world, the reality is your experience is likely more heavily weighted. So I've worked with people who are thinking that's what's in their way. only to find out that after we work together for a bit, it's really their confidence that's in the way. I have people who are just brokenhearted because they've worked their butts off. They've worked so hard, so many hours, doing so many things, and can't understand why they're not getting promoted. They're missing the visibility. They're missing the networking. They are heads down all the time, but not remembering to look up and demonstrate that leadership. So I'd say that's that belief there that kind of limits them is more of the if I just work harder, if I just do a good job, if I just. But the reality is sometimes it's about showing you're a leader, elevating yourself, elevating your team, and making sure you're maintaining that visibility and network on the side. Oh, this is a good one. The difference between confidence and bragging or cocky. That's a big one. A lot of times women are afraid to tell their whole story in a job interview or in an informational interview because they feel like it sounds like they're bragging. And my thing is, sister, if it's true, it's not bragging, it's confidence. There's a big difference. A gentleman will walk into that same office and he's going to report stats. He's going to talk about things that he did. He's going to talk about all the things he accomplished. And you might even sit back and go, wait a minute, I did that. It's coming out. But we'll sit back and we'll try to be more timid and more poised and more just, I want you to like me. And so what happens is we miss the opportunity to be confident and bring in that data. So that gets in the way too. I don't want people to think I'm cocky. Nobody's going to think that. Women, I don't even think have the ability. I've never met a cocky woman. I haven't. I've
Yeah.
met some women that I've been like, man, I wish I could tell my story like that. But I have never been like, oh, that was just you. It's
Yeah.
never that way.
Yeah. I love all those things.
One more I heard this week was the striving for perfection, right? I need to be in my role for 4 years. I need to be an expert at it before I can go after the next job. It's
Yeah.
not true. Perfection keeps us frozen for so long. It's what kept me in place for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
It kept me as a project manager for 10 years. It's so easy to fall into the trap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this idea of who are you listening to, right? Are you listening to somebody that's, oh, you can't do that. You've only ever done XYZ for 10 years. Are you listening to someone that's, oh, you definitely need a degree. Otherwise, they're not going to take you serious. Who are these people that you're listening to? Or are you
Right.
listening to that like voice in your head that's being a jerk to you all the time and telling you you can't do something that in all reality you are more than capable of doing? So recognizing who are you taking advice from and also tapping into like your inner knowing, like trust that you know you're ready for more. Trust that all of your years of professional experience, no matter what field it's in, is valuable. And that's what makes you unique out in the the job field. And so show up that way. Show up as your unique self, right?
Absolutely. And to touch on that, every skill is transferable. So you mentioned you were in teaching and now you're in design. So it's amazing. I've spoken to so many teachers who are just, I want to get into project management or I want to get into this different field. And I'll look at a resume. I do that occasionally just to help someone. And I'll say, wow, you've got some great teaching experience, but have you thought about translating this into corporate language? What do you mean? I was like, instead of prepared for and hosted parent teacher conferences, scheduled stakeholder meetings to set goals and create performance plans. Oh, it's like just language, right? It's so transferable. And someone else I worked with, going from 20 plus years in the telecom industry into healthcare. And she came to me and she was frustrated. She's like, I don't understand. Why don't they understand what I'm telling them? Like, why can't they put it together? It's the same thing. I said, well, is it their job to put it together or is it your job to explain the translation? She's like, "Oh." And then I think it was the very next job or the one right after that she got because she changed her way of bringing the information in. So those transferable skills are huge.
Amazing. I love those examples. I think it provides hope for people that are feeling stuck like that. Okay, yeah, maybe I can think a little bit more about how am I communicating my expertise. Back to the elevator pitch. I love how everything just come full circle all the time.
We are.
Yeah.
I would say that a couple of points that I definitely want to make sure came across is one, it's never too late to change your direction. If you're feeling unhappy or you're feeling stuck, you're not stuck. You're not a tree. And even if you were a tree, you could be dug up and moved to a different hole. Like it's not, you're never stuck.
Yeah.
So there's that. It is scary to make a change. It is scary sometimes to advocate for yourself. But the more you do it, the easier it gets and the better it is. And then I'd say the other would be don't let perfection get in your way. I'm laughing, flashing back to the very start of this podcast when I'm like, wait, I know my story. What did I just say? But it's fine, right? It's going to be okay. People want to see you as a human being. They don't expect you to always be buttoned up. They don't expect you to always be perfect. And they don't expect you to deliver on day one, right? It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to struggle a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's worth it. It's worth getting yourself together, getting your story together, and just making those moves that you've been putting off. Because time goes by, whether you go with it, it's up to you. You're kind of stuck, right? I shouldn't say stuck, but you're going to keep aging. The time's going to keep passing. So you might as well
Yes.
start doing what you want now.
Yes, absolutely. And really, it comes down to what do you value the most and what do you want your life to look like? And you know what it looks like right now. If you develop like, or how do you feel about that? If you're not feeling great, then start thinking, okay, what if, right? What if it was different? What would I want it to look and feel like? And that can really get you a little bit of momentum to start thinking outside of the box and exploring possibilities. And once you start doing that, I think it gets you excited rather than
It
so
does. I would
scared.
tell you, yeah. And tapping back on that limiting beliefs kind of space, there's this perception that you have to start at the bottom if you're doing something new, if you're making a transition. The fact is, you don't. You can learn anything. You just need to be able to communicate how you're going to do it. You need to have a plan. A little different in the entrepreneurial space if you're jumping from, say, corporate to entrepreneurial spaces, but there are coaches and mentors. There are others, a whole community of entrepreneurs that you'll find in your community when you start looking who can make it easier. So it's not, we got to let go of that fear of having to start over, start at the bottom that keeps us in careers that we don't love.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This idea of, oh, I've invested so much time in this one career. And if I start over, I'm starting from the bottom. Yeah. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily true
it's true.
unless you want it to be true. Like we get what we want, right? Like we get what we're looking for.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you go into looking for a new career and you keep coming up at the bottom of the totem pole in this new endeavor, like, why are you only finding those things? There's so much possibility out there. So definitely mindset
Absolutely.
and an energy thing. Like, what kind of energy are you exuding? And yeah, any change is an inside job, right? So
Absolutely. Just getting your mind around it and being willing to just go for it. I always say, what's the worst that can happen? I generally visualize that and it's never that bad. It's like, just do it. It's fine. And if
yeah,
you don't challenge yourself often in smaller areas, start challenging yourself a little more. I find that helps too. I've done some crazy things just because I'm like, man, I feel really stuck. I know, I'm going to go skydiving. Go try
yeah,
something new and see how it feels. You're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then, you know what? Maybe this transition isn't such a big deal. So there's
yeah,
lots to do in that space.
yeah. I love that. I listened to a podcast once where she was like, I challenged myself to do something scary every day for 30 days or something. And some days it was little and some days it was big, like skydiving. But that kind of got her muscle, strengthened her muscle of I can do hard things and look how resilient I am. So I love that idea or that strategy people can do or practice themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Tabitha, thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I've truly enjoyed our conversation. Would you mind sharing where people can find you if they're interested in working with you?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I have a website. It's tabathajones.com and I'm Tabitha with all A's, I always say. You can also find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm the most active on social media. I'm on the others, but don't really get so involved there. So LinkedIn is really the best place to connect with me. Just my name, Tabatha Jones, is the best way.
Awesome. And then we will provide that freebie for the elevator pitch in the show notes, like you mentioned earlier. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thanks so much, Brittany. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Tabitha again for sharing her wisdom and knowledge on the podcast today. I hope that you were able to gather some information that will help you in your job search. I think it's especially poignant that she mentioned communicating your value, whether that's in writing or in an interview, on a resume. Are you able to look back on your past experience and have conviction that it's really going to bring something unique and valuable to the table in your new career that you're pursuing? And are you able to articulate it well? So I encourage you to practice that, work on your elevator pitch, your resume, get some feedback from outside sources, reach out to someone that is far removed from the job search scene because, you're looking at your resume day in and day out. It can get pretty monotonous and you start losing sight of whether or not it's actually being effective anymore. As a reminder, if you're feeling stuck in your career, but you know that you're ready for more and you need some support pursuing a new role, I have a one-on-one coaching program using my dream career strategy to help you get unstuck, clarify your next career move, and help you take the steps necessary to change your career. If you're interested, please schedule a clarity call with me. The link is in the show notes. I'd love to chat and see how we can work together. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, make sure to leave a review. And until next time, I'm your host, Brittany Cates. Let's continue to shift your day job.